In 2021, there were more than 10 million low-income working families with children in the United States, and 39% were headed by working mothers. The economic conditions for these families have worsened since the onset of the recession. Between 2021 and 2021, there was a 4 percentage point increase in the share of female-headed working families that are low-income. Addressing challenges specific to these families will increase their economic opportunity, boost the economy and strengthen the fabric of communities across the nation. Public policy can play a critical role in our future prosperity by reversing this trend and improving outcomes for low-income working mothers. Of particular interest is how state governments can best invest in helping working mothers gain the education, skills and supports necessary to become economically secure and provide a strong economic future for their children. College application essays require you to follow a prompt or question. Select one idea, develop it throughout the essay, and include only the information that pertains to your topic. You might try to avoid writing abstract ideas or generalized thoughts. Instead, use concrete information and examples, which will prevent your writing from becoming lengthy and unfocused. For example, if an essay prompt asks you to write about your college goals, instead of discussing general topics like getting good grades, meeting new people and earning a degree, you may be better served to write about the specific area you plan to study, the steps you plan to take to graduate with honors, and how you want to take part in student organizations in order to network or serve the community. Remember, admissions officers read a large amount of essays, and you'll want your essay to keep the reader engaged and interested. Editing requires careful analysis and critical thinking, and proofreading requires a great deal of attention to detail. As such, they are not tasks that can be done in a rush or squeezed in between other tasks. It is essential to devote sufficient time and concentration to both, and being in the right frame of mind to do this is very important. Schedule a period of time in your diary for focusing solely on editing or proofing, and find an environment where you can be alone and free from distractions and interruptions. You may even wish to book a meeting room for yourself. Before you start, ensure that you are in a relaxed mood, with no other conflicting priorities or concerns to sidetrack your thoughts. Sit at a clear, uncluttered desk, which should have on it only the things that you need to help you with your task: pen, ruler, dictionary, thesaurus, grammar/punctuation guide, and your organization's style guide, if one exists. As with all types of work, take regular breaks, as it is not possible to concentrate for long periods. Don't edit or proofread for more than half an hour at a time without taking a break. Take even just a few moments to give your eyes a rest from the text. In encouraging honest intellectual effort, it is important to establish a firm but positive classroom ethos from the first day of class. To be effective, the ethic should have a positive side. Statements about what is not allowed, no matter how urgently expressed, are far more effective when paired with what is expected. While it can be tempting to focus on how you will punish or mark down plagiarism rather than your specific expectations, do not fall into this trap. Once the ethos shifts to strategic gameplaying for points, students will see cheating as a rational choice. After years of analyzing what makes leaders most effective and figuring out who's got the right stuff, management gurus now know how to boost the odds of getting a great executive: hire a female. The idea that women are effective leaders has jumped from the writers of feminist trade books on management to the mainstream press and is steadily making its way into the popular culture. Articles in newspapers and business magazines reveal a cultural realignment in the United States that proclaims a new era for female leaders. As Business Week announces that women have the right stuff, Fast Company concurs that the future of business depends on women. Even more startling is Business Week's subsequent cover story on the new gender gap, maintaining that men could become losers in a global economy that values mental power over might. The sharp edge of these female advantage articles must be quite baffling to the many academic leadership researchers who have argued that gender has little relation to leadership style. They might be tempted to conclude that in our postmodernist world the voices of social scientists have not been accorded any special authority. However, to earn the trust of journalists and the public, leadership researchers must approach these issues with sophisticated enough theories and methods that they illuminate the implications of gender in organizational life. Toward this goal, we show that a careful sifting through social scientific evidence, separating wheat from chaff, suggests that contemporary journalists, while surely conveying too simple a message, are expressing some of the new realities associated with women's rise into elite leadership roles. Using photography as a data collection technique in social research has grown increasingly common as equipment has become cheaper and simpler to use, and as participants' direct involvement in the process of inquiry has gained traction amongst investigators. Photography is used to gather insights into a wide range of subjects and is utilized by both academic and non-academic researchers. It is particularly favored in research with children, offering young participants the freedom to choose a response away from the researcher's direct presence and the consequent pressure this can entail. Photography is also selected in research with young people on the grounds that it is a pleasurable activity, one that can add a fun dimension to a research project. Because of the greater degree of flexibility and creativity it can offer, photography is thus seen as a tool that can include young people as active participants in the research process, involving them directly in an enjoyable and engaging manner. The APA style contains not only a referencing system but also a number of other recommendations for how a scientific report should be written. These instructions, which apply to all forms of academic writing in social work, are based primarily on the 6th edition of the Publication Manual of the American Psychological Association. However, it does not encompass all possible considerations, but a number of central aspects that are considered to create a sufficiently good basis for the student's academic writing. The student must ensure that references to literature and other material are included in both the running text and in the reference list at the end of the essay. In principle, the student is to avoid the use of notes or footnotes. If the type of reference the student wishes to cite is not included in the instructions, he will have to consult the Publication Manual of the American Psychological Association and/or the links under the section entitled More Reading Tips about the APA style, in which there are continual updates, and that there are answers and tips concerning various questions about referencing. Please observe that the supporting books and sources mentioned do not replace these instructions, and if exemplifications in these instructions are lacking, the supporting books and sources mentioned may be used. Passionate, creative, resourceful, driven to learn. That's how Leanne Kidwell and Jennifer Hurst describe the children they interact with each day as preschool teachers for day early learning. However, those same words are often used to describe great teachers, and they can certainly be used to describe this mother and daughter who have made a career out of educating Indiana's youngest learners. As a military wife, Leanne often found herself running her household and serving as the primary caregiver for her 3 young children while her husband was serving in the Navy. During that time, she decided to run a home-based child care so she could teach her children while also providing help to other families. I started caring for kids in my home, but once I decided this was a good career for me, I moved on to work in Navy child care centers, said Leanne. That is where I learned what quality care looks like. Nearly 95% of the Department of Defense's more than 800 centers are accredited by the National Association for the Education of Young Children and are considered among the highest quality centers. Planets which generate magnetic fields in their interiors, such as Earth, Mercury, Jupiter and Saturn, are surrounded by invisible magnetospheres. Their magnetic fields deflect the charged particles of the solar wind, electrons and protons, as they stream away from the Sun. This deflection creates a magnetosphere, a protective bubble around the planet, which ends in an elongated magnetotail on the lee side of the magnetosphere, since Venus has no intrinsic magnetic field to act as a shield against incoming charged particles. The solar wind sometimes interacts directly with the upper atmosphere. However, Venus is partially protected by an induced magnetic field. As on Earth, solar ultraviolet radiation removes electrons from the atoms and molecules in the upper atmosphere, creating a region of electrically charged gas known as the ionosphere. This ionized layer interacts with the solar wind and the magnetic field carried by the solar wind. During the continuous battle with the solar wind, this region of the upper atmosphere is able to slow and divert the flow of particles around the planet, creating a magnetosphere, shaped rather like a comet's tail, on the lee side of the planet. Which of the following explains how Venus is protected from solar winds despite the absence of a magnetic field?